Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Easy English Podcast. I'm Hana, and as always, I'm here with my co-host, Alex.
Hi, Hana, and a huge welcome to all our listeners joining us from around the world. I'm so excited for today's episode. It is going to be a fun one.
It really is. Today, we are sharing a very dramatic, slightly stressful, but ultimately funny story about travel. We've all been there, right? The rush, the worry, the endless lists. But today's story takes travel drama to a whole new level.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking about the ultimate travel nightmare, packing the wrong suitcases. Imagine getting to the airport, checking your bags, and realizing you have someone else's entire life in your hands, or worse, your own family's mixed up luggage.
Exactly. And along the way, we're going to teach you some fantastic real-life English vocabulary. Words and phrases you can actually use when you're packing, dealing with travel mix-ups, or trying to sort out problems at the airport.
Yes, because let's face it, things go wrong when we travel. It's just a part of the adventure. So knowing how to explain these problems in English is incredibly useful.
So, let's meet our main characters for today. This is the story of the Miller family. There's Sarah, the mom who loves to plan everything. Then there's Dave, the dad, who is a bit more relaxed, maybe too relaxed sometimes. And their two teenage kids, Leo and Lily.
The Millers were preparing for their big summer holiday to Spain, a whole 2 weeks of sun, beach, and relaxation. But, as we know, the morning of a flight is never actually relaxing, is it?
Never. It's always a chaotic morning. Chaotic is a great word, by the way. It means completely crazy, disorganized, and full of confusion. For example, you could say, the kitchen was chaotic because everyone was trying to make breakfast at the same time.
That is the perfect description of the Miller household at 5 a.m. They had to leave for the airport in exactly 1 hour, and let's just say things were not going smoothly.
Right. Sarah was running around the house, shouting, "Has everyone packed their toothbrushes? Did anyone see the passports?" Dave was downstairs, slowly drinking his coffee, thinking they had plenty of time.
Classic Dave. Meanwhile, Leo and Lily were still asleep. Well, half asleep. They had to be dragged out of bed. Sarah was getting more and more stressed. She had a major task ahead of her, checking the suitcases.
Yes, the packing. Now, in the Miller house, they have 4 identical black suitcases. This is mistake number 1, isn't it, Alex?
Oh, definitely. Rule number 1 of travel. Never buy identical black suitcases unless you put some very bright ribbons on them. If they look exactly the same, you are just asking for trouble.
Exactly. They had 4 large black zipped bags sitting in the hallway. Sarah had carefully created a packing list for everyone, but because they were running late, she started rushing. She started zipping up the bags without double-checking what was inside them.
To double check means to check something a second time to make sure it is correct or safe. For example, I always double check that the front door is locked before I go to sleep. It's a very useful habit.
But Sarah didn't double-check. She just assumed that since there were 4 bags and 4 people, everything was perfect. She yelled, "Dave, put the luggage in the car. We need to hit the road."
To hit the road is a fun idiom. It simply means to depart, to leave, or to start a journey. You can say to your friends, "It's getting late. We should hit the road." So Dave, still half asleep, grabbed the 4 heavy suitcases from the hallway and loaded them into the trunk of the car. They were finally on their way to the airport, but the chaos was only just beginning.
They really thought the hard part was over once they were in the car. But as they drove toward the airport, the traffic was terrible. Sarah was checking her watch every 2 minutes, her heart beating fast. This is what we call a nail-biting situation, which means it is extremely tense or stressful. Have you ever had one of those nail-biting drives to the airport, Alex?
Oh, too many times. You are just staring at the red brake lights of the cars in front of you, praying that they start moving. It is the worst feeling because you have absolutely no control over the situation. And in their case, the clock was ticking.
If they miss their flight, their whole vacation would be ruined.
Exactly. Finally, they arrived at the airport terminal. They parked the car in a hurry, and Dave grabbed a metal luggage trolley. A luggage trolley is that metal cart with wheels that you use to push heavy bags around the airport. Dave piled all 4 black suitcases onto the trolley, and they ran inside the terminal.
When you are in a rush at the airport, every little delay feels like an eternity. The terminal was packed with people, and the lines at the check-in desks were incredibly long. Sarah managed to find their airline's desk just 10 minutes before the check-in closed. They were sweating, out of breath, but relieved. They thought they had made it.
Yes, they felt so lucky. The airline agent at the desk was very polite. She asked for their passports and their booking confirmation. Then, she asked them to place their first suitcase onto the baggage scale. The baggage scale is the machine that weighs your bags to make sure they are not too heavy.
Right, because if your suitcase is over the weight limit, you have to pay an extra fee, which is called an excess baggage charge. Most airlines are very strict about this. So Dave lifted the first heavy black suitcase onto the scale. The agent printed a sticky baggage tag, wrapped it around the handle, and sent the bag down the conveyor belt. And then she did the same with the second bag.
But while the second bag was moving away on the belt, Leo, their teenage son, noticed something strange. He looked at the third suitcase, which was still sitting on the trolley. He frowned and said, "Mom, why is there a dusty old sticker on this handle? This looks like the sticker from our camping trip to the lake 3 years ago."
Oh, no.
Yes. Sarah looked closely at the sticker. It was indeed from their camping trip, but Sarah had bought brand new black suitcases for this summer holiday in Spain. The old camping suitcases were supposed to be empty and stored in the dark attic.
Wait, so if the camping suitcases were in the attic, why were they on the luggage trolley at the airport?
That is the golden question. Sarah slowly zipped open the front pocket of the third suitcase. Instead of her beautiful summer dresses and swimwear, she saw old sleeping bags, a rusty camping stove, and some very dirty, smelly hiking boots from 3 years ago.
No way. That is an absolute nightmare. So in the rush and confusion back at the house, they had grabbed the wrong black suitcases from the hallway. Let me guess, the hallway had both the new packed suitcases and the old dusty camping ones.
Precisely. Dave had brought the old camping bags down from the attic the night before because he wanted to clean them. He had left them in the dark hallway right next to the new packed suitcases. In the morning, when Sarah yelled at him to load the car, Dave just grabbed the first 4 black bags he saw in the dark. He didn't double-check them at all.
This is unbelievable. So they had just checked in 2 suitcases. Were those 2 the correct ones, or were they also filled with camping gear?
They had no idea. The first 2 bags had already disappeared down the conveyor belt, deep into the airport's luggage system. Sarah started to panic. She turned pale and yelled, "Stop! Stop the bags! We have the wrong suitcases!"
The poor airline agent must have been so confused. It is actually very difficult to get a bag back once it goes down that belt. It goes through automated security scanners and gets sorted into different tunnels. To retrieve something means to find it and bring it back. Retrieving a bag from the airport system is like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Exactly. The agent told them, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but those bags are already on their way to the loading area. I cannot stop the belt now." At this point, Lily, the little daughter, started crying because she realized her favorite pink teddy bear and her summer dresses were still sitting at home in the correct suitcase.
This is a massive travel mix-up. A mix-up is a mistake caused by confusion or a lack of clear organization. For example, there was a mix-up with our hotel reservation and they gave us the wrong room. In this case, the mix-up meant they had 2 mystery bags already checked in and 2 useless camping bags sitting on their trolley.
And the clock was still ticking. The boarding gate was going to close in 15 minutes. They had a huge decision to make. Do they cancel the flight, go back home, and miss their expensive holiday? Or do they get on the plane with no clothes, no swimwear, and only a dirty sleeping bag?
That is an incredibly difficult choice. If they go home, they lose all the money they spent on flights and hotels.
But traveling to a sunny resort in Spain with old hiking boots and a camping stove sounds hilarious, but extremely uncomfortable. What did Sarah and Dave decide to do?
Well, Dave looked at his watch, looked at his crying daughter, and made a quick decision. He said, "We are getting on that plane. We can buy new clothes in Spain, but we cannot buy a new family holiday." So they left the 2 heavy camping bags with the airline's customer service desk, ran through security, and literally sprinted to the gate. They were the very last passengers to board the aircraft. They were completely breathless.
Wow, what a stressful start. I can feel my heart racing just listening to this. To board a plane means to get on it, and sprint means to run extremely fast for a short distance. I bet the other passengers were staring at them when they walked down the aisle, sweaty and out of breath. But wait, what happened to the 2 bags that went down the conveyor belt? The ones belonging to the poor university student?
Yes. This is where the story gets even more interesting. When they arrived in Spain, they had to go to the baggage claim area to see what would happen. Baggage claim is the place in the airport where you collect your luggage after a flight. Usually, you stand around a giant moving carousel waiting for your bags to appear. Dave and Sarah stood there, feeling very nervous, wondering what would come out on the belt.
And remember, they didn't even have the keys or the combinations for those 2 suitcases because they weren't theirs. If they did arrive, they couldn't even open them legally. That is a major security issue. In airports, they're very strict about luggage. You should never, ever take or check in a bag that does not belong to you.
Absolutely. It is actually a security violation. While they were waiting at the carousel in Spain, Sarah's phone rang. It was an international number. She answered it, and a young man with a very worried voice said, "Hello, is this Sarah? My name is Toby. I think you have my suitcases, and I have yours."
Ah, what a relief. Toby, the student, must have gone to the garage to get his suitcases for his camping trip, only to find 2 bright pink and blue suitcases filled with summer clothes and a teddy bear. That is amazing. Let's look at the phrase to have a relief or what a relief. We use relief when a bad or stressful situation suddenly ends or gets better. For example, it was a huge relief when I found my lost passport in my pocket.
Yes, Toby was actually still at their house. He had arrived a bit later to collect his things, saw the colorful suitcases, and immediately realized what had happened. Luckily, Sarah had left her luggage tags on the handles of her correct suitcases. A luggage tag is a small card or label attached to your bag that shows your name, phone number, and address. It is incredibly important to always use them. Because of the luggage tag, Toby could call her directly.
That is a lifesaver. Always write your phone number with the country code on your luggage tags. If she hadn't done that, Toby would have had no way of contacting them. But wait, how did they solve the problem of the 2 bags that were already in Spain with Sarah and Dave?
This is where they had to explain everything to the airport staff. Dave had to go to the lost and found desk, which is also sometimes called the baggage services desk. He had to explain the situation. This is a great phrase for English learners. To explain the situation means to describe what happened, especially when there is a complicated mistake. Dave had to say, "Excuse me, there has been a major mix-up. We checked in 2 bags that do not belong to us."
That must have been a very awkward conversation. The staff must have looked at him like he was crazy. To explain a mistake to airline staff, you need to use clear, polite language. You can start with, "I'm sorry, there has been an oversight." An oversight is a mistake made because you didn't notice something. Or you can say, "We accidentally checked in the wrong bags." Accidentally is the opposite of on purpose. It means you did not mean to do it.
Exactly. The airline staff in Spain were actually very understanding, but they had to follow strict rules. They had to impound the bags. To impound means to take legal possession of something because of a law or rule. They told Dave they could not release the bags to him, which was actually a good thing because those bags belonged to Toby. They had to be sent back to the home airport on the next flight.
So the mystery bags were sent back to London, which was great for Toby. But what about Sarah, Dave, and Lily?
They were in Spain with literally nothing but the clothes on their backs.
They had to go shopping. Dave, who usually hates shopping, had to spend his first holiday morning in a local Spanish department store buying t-shirts, shorts, swimwear, and, most importantly, a new teddy bear for Lily. They called it their emergency wardrobe. An emergency wardrobe is a set of clothes you buy quickly because you have nothing else to wear.
That sounds like an expensive mistake, but also quite a fun adventure in a way. You get to buy a whole new style of clothes. Did they ever get their original suitcases back during the holiday?
They did, but only on the very last day of their trip. Toby was incredibly kind. He took their correct suitcases back to the airport in London and checked them in for them. But because of cargo shipping times, the bags took 5 days to arrive in Spain. They got their bags just in time to pack them up again and fly home.
That is unbelievable. They basically paid to fly their suitcases to Spain just so they could take them back home. This story is the perfect example of why we need to be extremely careful when we prepare for a trip. Let's break down some of the key lessons and vocabulary from this crazy travel mix-up so our listeners can avoid the same fate.
Oh, absolutely. The very first lesson here is about labeling your bags. Dave and Sarah learned the hard way that having identical black suitcases is a recipe for disaster. A recipe for disaster is a great idiom, by the way. It means a situation that is highly likely to cause a major problem or result in trouble. If you have 3 identical bags, it is a recipe for disaster unless you make them look different.
Definitely. So how do we prevent this? One simple tool is a luggage tag. A luggage tag is a small label you attach to your suitcase. It usually has your name, phone number, and email address on it. But in this case, even a luggage tag with the name wasn't enough because they didn't actually read them. They just grabbed the bags because they looked familiar. So you need something highly visual.
Yes, like a bright ribbon, a colorful strap, or even some funny stickers. I always tie a bright neon green ribbon to the handle of my suitcase. That way, when it comes out on the luggage carousel, I can spot it instantly from far away. It stands out. To stand out means to be very easy to see or notice because you look different from everything else around you. My bright green ribbon stands out amongst a sea of black suitcases.
That is an excellent tip, Hana. I use a bright orange luggage strap that goes all the way around my bag. It serves 2 purposes. It keeps the bag securely closed, and it makes it impossible to mistake for someone else's bag. Now, let's talk about what to do if you actually find yourself in this situation at the airport. Imagine you were at the baggage reclaim area, and you realize your bags are missing, or you have taken the wrong ones. What is the first step?
The first step is to find the baggage service desk or talk to a customer service agent. When you speak to them, you need to remain calm. It is very easy to feel stressed and raise your voice, but that won't help. You want to use polite negotiation and problem-solving language. For example, instead of saying, "You lost my bags, fix this now," you can say, "Excuse me, I seem to have a problem with my luggage. Could you please help me trace it?"
That is so important. Being polite goes a long way. The phrase, "I seem to have a problem," is a very soft, polite way to introduce a difficult situation. It doesn't sound angry or aggressive. Another great phrase is, "Could you advise me on the next steps?" This asks the agent for their professional guidance, and it shows you are ready to cooperate with them to solve the problem.
Exactly. And if the mistake was yours, like it was for Dave and Toby, you should be completely honest. You can say, "I'm afraid there has been a mix-up. I accidentally picked up the wrong suitcase, and my correct suitcase is still here." Or perhaps someone else has it. The phrase, "I'm afraid," in this context, doesn't mean you are scared. It is a polite way of introducing bad news or admitting a mistake. For example, "I'm afraid I made a mistake."
That's a very useful English standard. I'm afraid it just softens the blow. Now, let's look at what the airport agent might ask you. They will likely ask for your baggage claim tag. This is the little sticker with a barcode that the airline staff stick to your passport or boarding pass when you check in your bags at the departure airport. Never throw that away. It is your only official proof that you checked in a bag, and it helps the system locate where your bag went.
Yes, that little sticker is gold. always keep it safe. The agent might also ask you to describe your bag. They might say, "Can you describe the suitcase for me?" This is when you need good descriptive vocabulary. You can talk about the material. Is it a hard-shell suitcase or a soft-sided fabric bag? A hard-shell suitcase is made of hard plastic, which protects your things from getting crushed. A soft-sided bag is made of thick fabric, which can stretch a bit more.
Great vocabulary. You can also describe the wheels. Does it have 2 wheels or is it a spinner suitcase with 4 wheels that can turn in any direction? You should also mention any distinctive features like it has a silver zipper or there's a small tear on the front pocket. All of these details go into the airport computer system to help find your bag among thousands of others.
And once they put the information in, they will give you a document. It is usually called a Property Irregularity Report, or PAR for short. It is a formal document that tracks your lost or delayed luggage. You must keep this document safe because it has a reference number you can use to check the status of your bag online.
Right. And if your bags are truly delayed, you can politely ask the agent about compensation or essential items. You can ask, does the airline provide an amenity kit? An amenity kit is a small bag containing basic items like a toothbrush, toothpaste, soap, and maybe a basic t-shirt to help you get through the first night without your luggage. Many airlines will provide this if your bag is delayed.
They will, indeed. You can also ask, what is your policy on emergency expenses? This is a polite way of asking if the airline will refund you for buying basic clothing like Dave had to do in Spain. Make sure you keep every single receipt if you have to buy emergency clothes, as you will need to submit them to the airline later to get your money back.
That is a crucial tip. No receipts, no refund. Well, Hannah, we have covered some incredibly useful vocabulary and some great lessons today. From identical bags and impounding luggage to luggage tags, standing out, and politely negotiating at the customer service desk. I think our listeners are now fully prepared to handle any baggage adventure that comes your way.
I hope so. And I hope they never have to experience a crazy mix-up like Dave and Toby did. But if they do, at least they have the English words to solve it calmly. That brings us to the end of today's episode of Easy English Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, everyone.
Yes, thank you all for tuning in. Safe travels on your next trip. Remember to double-check your luggage tags, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.